Okay, so now it's live. Should be okay. There's some delay, but that should be okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, do you wanna advertise it on Twitter to say
Sure.
that we are going to start now?
Sounds good.
And yeah, so if there is any question on the web, then maybe we'll answer.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
I don't know if there's any viewers, but anyway.
Maybe some of my friends will tune in.
Okay. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so today this is part of the Korea structure Q&A with a prospective PhD student, Phil. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Philip. I'm a graduate from the University of Melbourne, having completed a Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience, currently working as a research intern at Monash Neuroscience of Consciousness in T-Lab.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason why we are doing this is that Phil had some questions about in general, like how does it work in terms of interns or PhD program with respect to the bachelor degree and so on. So I'll just answer to your questions.
Yeah, sounds good. I think it'll be a good idea to maybe start off with a little bit of your educational background and how you got into your PhD program. It might be a little bit different from the typical Australian PhD program, but it'll be interesting nonetheless.
Right. So I mean, I could go on relatively long about this, but let me first try to be relatively brief, and then you can ask me sort of the uh, details that you might want to ask, right? So I graduated from Kyoto University as a bachelor degree, and then during that I visited U.S. graduate school when I was a third year student, and then got inspired by some particular professors, and also reading some books. I also pretty much determined to go to U.S. grad school. And then I applied for that, but none of them took me. And there was some kind of a meeting with a professor from Caltech in Japan, uh, uh, some kind of conference. And then I was already told that I was unsuccessful in application. So since then I decided to go to US for just a volunteer, and then eventually I started to do. I was able to find some kind of intern or volunteer position as a researcher in Christoph Koch's lab, and then I got a PhD offer from them in the end. So I was rejected by Caltech, but I did volunteer for a while, and then Christoph liked me, and then that's why I got in there.
Yeah. There's definitely more questions to ask, but maybe with the following questions we can come back to it.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a good idea to maybe stick within the Australian scheme to begin with, because perhaps a lot of the people that may listen are from Australia. I think it's just a good idea to start off with the basic educational pathway to get into a PhD program. So as far as I'm aware, it'll be, say, a bachelor's degree at an undergraduate level, perhaps a Bachelor of Science or Biomedicine, then moving into an honours year. And then after the honours year, is that when people look to apply to a PhD?
Mm. Yeah, so in the case of Australia, it's kind of amorphous, and so it's a bit hard to say exactly, but in general, PhD student in Australia, if you are national student, a domestic student, then they tend to do the honors year in the final year, and then depending on the score of that, you can get the scholarship to start PhD funded by government, or you fund yourself and then to start PhD. That's a two general path. Or you may skip honors and then do the master degree in either Australian university or somewhere else, and then because this bachelor honors degree in the final year of the bachelor in Australia is considered to be master equivalent in other countries. So
Okay.
that's another pathway. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, most of the time you'd have to have like a significant research component, right, within these masters or honors before going in.
Yeah, so in the case of the domestic student, yes, the honors degree usually comes with research experience per se, plus the writing of thesis, which roughly in the case of monash psychology, it's a 12,000 words, and amount of the research is starting from end of February until roughly October, so 6 months of research. But actual research itself is usually done in 3 to 4 months, because each of the honors student is supposed to do this honors component 20 hours per week.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. All right. In regards to, say, an undergraduate level, I think this question's particularly confusing for most students, and that's in regards to the major you complete at an undergraduate level and then a student's desired field of interest later on at PhD. So, for instance, for myself, I completed a Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience. Can I then do my PhD in, say, the field of psychology? Or, yeah, we'll stick to field of psychology. I guess it'll be a little bit different if I went from neuroscience to physics or mathematics, but can I go from neuroscience to psychology?
The short answer is absolutely yes. And there are two kind of considerations. I mean, it depends on the school and also probably the supervisor, but generally speaking, Australian admission process is it's consisted of two components. One is whether your future advisor already likes you, or are convinced that you can do this kind of PhD. So for that matter, if anybody wants to do a PhD in my lab, as long as I'm convinced that you're good, I don't really care about your background. And in fact, I prefer students to have a different backgrounds other than psychology. Especially, in my lab, the essential thing is the programming and the quantitative analysis. So, background with physics, mathematics is actually much better than psychology. Then the second component is about the scholarship assessment, and that's a different kind of things, and that it's quite automatic in a sense. So it's like amount of the papers that you published, or scores of the honors and so on, and that depends on different school or university.
Yep. So the PhD seems quite fluid in what you can do. How about the honors year? If you have like a Bachelor of Neuroscience, can you do an honors in psychology, or should you stick with, say, whatever you majored in and then apply later on for that PhD?
Again, I would say that it's completely flexible, and I have, for example, one of our current PhD student did the bachelor degree up to third year. She was in philosophy department, I think, in the
Mhm.
University of Melbourne, and then did the honors with me in the psychology department. So as long as you can get into, you get a good score to get
Yep.
into the PhD, the honors degree. Usually, any kind of background doesn't matter really.
Yep. Sounds good. I think that's going to provide a lot of clarity to a lot of people.
Okay.
So you said that a large part of applying for a PhD is also getting along or maybe showing the supervisor that you have the potential to complete that PhD. So do you have any tips for prospective PhD students that are looking to apply for a PhD, what they should do outside of their degrees, whether that be any sort of extracurricular activities or any skills that they should seek to develop?
This highly depends on the supervisor. So I'm gonna speak only about in my case, right? Okay. So
Sure.
I don't know. So you need to talk with a different supervisor if
Yep.
you're interested. So first of all, I clarify our lab's interest, research interest, and also long-term interest and so on the website, and you might have already seen it, right? But we have a
Yep.
research statement and also what type of people we are looking for. And
Yep. Yep.
one most important thing is the interest in consciousness,
Yep.
right? If we can't agree on that, then from the beginning, I don't think we share the goal, so it
Yep.
won't work, right? And the second thing is to see whether, in my case, through the short period of internship, I want to assess the people carefully, and there are multiple assessment points, but that one I can talk about later. But this internship period is really essential for me to get to
Yep.
know you, and then the third thing would be skills. So CVs and so on are good at initially get to know the person, but actually working with you for a couple of months is nothing comparable to this thing. The main reason is that you I basically can't measure your sort of the appropriateness unless I see it over the time and the multiple time points.
Yep.
Right? Otherwise, I can't measure the growth curve.
Yep.
Even
Sure.
if you're really good in the beginning, after 2 months, you don't do anything, then I say sorry, I can't work with you.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
you're not the person who can learn, right?
Yeah.
And in the beginning, if you don't know anything about consciousness or neuroscience or whatever, but within 2 months, if you grow quickly, then yeah, I'm very happy to commit to you. So that's the
Yep.
kind of idea.
Yeah, sounds good. So I think for any students looking at maybe getting into a PhD program, perhaps looking for like this, like an internship program where the supervisor can get to know you, and just basically showing that you have a willingness to learn and do the PhD. I mean, why would someone sign you on for 4-year PhD if you weren't willing to learn? So yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So maybe the next thing then is how you would go about finding a supervisor and how to maintain good relationships with supervisors. I know a lot of my friends are asking this at an honors level. So it's often told as advice to find a supervisor you can work with. Otherwise, your PhD program might not go as well as you'd like it to go.
Yeah, I mean, for that purpose, I would say that you just need to do research. Currently, we have lots of websites, and you can download the papers of pretty much any researcher through Google Scholar or anywhere. And so It's unbelievable kind of situation compared to when I was a PhD student, PhD candidate. As I said in the beginning, I wanted to go to U.S. grad school, but at that time, pretty much all the information available was that for each school we have a website, and then that website listed each of the faculty name. And then when you click that, then you can have like roughly like one page description of what they are doing. But from there, it's almost impossible to do anything. And then so I needed to use something like a PubMed, and then I look at the abstracts of the paper that they wrote. But it's still difficult, compared to that. You guys have a huge amount of information that you can search for, so you should do that.
Yeah, awesome. Similar situation to how I found the internship. So searched up Melbourne Monash consciousness research, and I think I was just looking through all the scholars and academics in the consciousness field, and then just checking Twitter, LinkedIn, and just reaching out to some people really. So yeah, we do have a lot of opportunities. So it's good to reach out to people. Yeah. So maybe talking about a little bit how demanding a PhD may be in terms of commitment. I'm sure a lot of us know that it's hard to get a doctorate or time consuming, and how students at a PhD level can maintain, say, a work-life balance so that we can also take care of our well-being whilst completing these 4 years or so.
It's hard for me to say that because I didn't do the PhD in here, right? So it might be something that you might want to ask and also interview with other PhD student or postdoc in my lab later on. Maybe schedule another Q&A for them, and then I'll ask about that. But from my perspective, Australian PhD is just compared to US, the biggest difference is that it's super fast. Okay, 3 years is the basic duration. 3 years and 3 months or something like that is a basic scholarship support. And we really are pushed by department and school to make sure that the student can graduate in 3 years, 3.5 years. Okay, so we have several milestone event, like half a year and the 1 year and the second year and then third year just before writing thesis. But every time we make sure that the project is going well. And then if, for example, at the 6 months, we find that you have some kind of problem in somewhere, like if you didn't do the proper preparation in terms of establishing relationship or repeating yourself to supervisor, then after 6 months or 1 year, we may recommend you to not to continue and so on. But otherwise, I don't think it's really demanding or difficult, as long as I think I can confirm that you're suited during this internship. Okay, so I had a couple of students, it's not my own student, okay, because I always emphasize this internship period. So I never had a student who didn't do the internship for me, right? Or I think it's probably never. I need to think about it. But so because of that, I never had any kind of bad or disastrous situation after you starting PhD. However, I've been a co-supervisor of the student who was enrolled without any kind of relation with another supervisor. Then what happened, for example, was that that person had absolutely no ability to learn the programming, for example. And it's very difficult to imagine or predict what kind of skill or personal trait or personal discipline is necessary to learn programming. But I'm kind of trying to build up how to let any people to learn programming, but there exists some people who just can't learn program.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know exactly why. But when that happens, then, after 6 months or after 1 year, sometimes we do observe absolutely no progress, right? In that case, it's just, for the benefit of both, supervisor and student, we do recommend, those, to be finished at that point.
Yeah. I think that's good as well. So in my case as well, in this internship, I am learning how to code. Don't really have a coding background, but already gaining more experience in like R, as well as several behavioral programs like PsychoPy. So I guess we'll see there too.
So I'm really happy to see your progress on the Mattermost, right? So you're the kind of the person, I think, on that kind of domain, I don't have much concern already. So you have already cleared one of the barriers.
Give me time, we'll see. So I think, all right, that was good. I think another thing to touch on is like the financial support in PhD projects, whether we can just cover the basic stipend in Australia, how competitive it is to receive that, and perhaps how competitive it is to get into the PhD program, maybe academic merit-wise in terms of scores, and then any sort of extra like internships or skills.
Okay, so you asked a lot of questions, so I'll just answer one by one, and then you can just tell me or ask me for the follow-up question. The first one is that if you get a scholarship, then I think what it offers for the domestic student is that waiver or sort of a cover of the tuition fee, first of all, so you don't have to pay any tuition. And then in addition to that, you will get the stipend of roughly $500 for 2 weeks after tax deduction. Which is probably enough to live around Melbourne, around Monash, right? And then, and if you are international, then in addition to that, you also get some kind of additional international the payment for the tuition fee. So probably that's the difference. But these are the things. Then how difficult to get this scholarship? It is difficult, first of all. And for the domestic student, it used to be that if you get the H1 equivalent, like it's like above 80 or something like that for your honors research component, then you're almost guaranteed to get that automatically. But that's not the case over the last couple of years. It's getting more and more competitive. So you need to talk to your supervisor and then how to deal with it. And one thing that I can, for example, offer is that, especially in the case of the Monash psychology, it turned out that it's super competitive, okay, compared to other department. So even if you have exactly the same kind of background, going through the psychology, I think it's I don't have a good precise number, but the competitiveness could be really high compared to other department. And so depending on your project, it might make sense to get in through other faculty like philosophy or arts or IT. But if you want to work with me, then have me as a sort of the already planned course supervisor, and then negotiate with this another collaborator that I'm actually working with. I have a collaborator in philosophy and physics and also IT and so on. So you can do this kind of thing, and then to make sure that you get in with the scholarship, but you do the research that you want to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. Didn't know that you could do that actually. Work with others through you as well and collaborate. So that's good.
Right.
Yeah, and I can sort of vouch for how difficult it is at a psychology level to get into an honours program, even let alone a PhD. So I think the basic entry level that's needed in terms of academia or academic merit is quite high. Seems to be the case for almost everything nowadays, but good to know.
Yeah.
And also I've heard, I don't know if this is a misconception, but I've heard that stipends are usually given out for things that are national priorities, whether that be diseases or biological processes that have links to health, particularly projects like that, as opposed to something more philosophy-based. Maybe that's when we can change. I'm not too sure.
It is true, but because I don't have that, I have only one experience with having such a grant. So the so for example, FIT, Faculty of Information Theory, right? In Monash, they have some kind of strategic funding they received probably from government to allow them to fund PhD stipend for 3 years, basically. Not through the usual competitive kind of process, but through their own, selection process. And they what they did last year was to nominate this candidate, but the requirement is that each of the candidate has to be supervised between IT person and somewhere from other faculty. So I was about to supervise some students, but because of several issues, I decided not to. But that kind of thing, I think it was in fact as you said through national priority kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but through health, I don't know. And another possible pathway is to find some person who received a grant from Australian government, either there are two bodies mainly, like ARC and also NHMRC. And NHMRC are the more health research oriented. And both of them can potentially give funding to hire PhD student. But I have received a couple of grants in the past, but I have never used that money to hire PhD student.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you may find some, advertisement of opening of the PhD student through the grant opportunity, which is linked potentially to national priority. But I think it's probably rare. And all my students in the past were coming through the usual path, and then it was nothing to do with the national priority.
Yeah. Sounds good. I think that's about all the questions I had today, unless you wanted to, because we focused a lot on Australia, I know that we have a lot of international students in the lab as well. Did you want to comment at all on some of the, say, more directed towards the international students? Oh, we good.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's mainly to answer your questions today, so that's fine.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, I think that's all good then.
All right. Then that's it for today, and I'll just stop live streaming. All right. Thank you. End stream. Okay, so we finished the stream.